Hello and welcome to this video. And on this video, I'm going to be ranking the albums by the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra. But in this ranking, I will not be doing it on my own because I have some of my lovely patrons here to help. And aren't just going to help with talking about the albums. They have also helped in the actual creation of this list. So a couple of years ago, when I was bored, stuck in the house in COVID, I decided to do a ranking of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra albums, and that was the beginning of this YouTube. And I thought I'd love to do it again, but a way to make it more objective would be to do the ranking within my Patreon. So we've had a number of polls, and my patrons have been voting all week, and we've now have a definitive list, and I think it's pretty good. So we're going to kick off with the rankings. So are you guys all ready to do this?
Yeah, sure.
Ready. Yeah, so we're gonna start. There's 10 albums. So one of the things with this ranking, I'm also including the 80s MAHAVISHNU Orchestra. I put that in as I did before, but I'm also including the bonus disc that was released in the box set a few years ago, the box set of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, which was a lot of bonus material from the recording of Between Nothingness and Eternity, where you get to hear properly recorded the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra playing their classic tunes live. And I think it's a very important release. So I want to stick that in the mix as well. So we'll start at number 10. Right, I'll just get my list up. So at number 10 on the list, we have Adventures in Radioland that came out in, I believe, in 1986. And it's the second album by the 80s incarnation of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra. So let's start with you, Steve. I'll go around. What do you think about that album?
I'll be perfectly honest, I've not really listened to it a great deal. So I'm probably not the best to talk about it.
And why not?
Well, I came into the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra quite late, really. It was something I picked up in sort of, the 90s, really, rather than earlier on. I had heard about them, but I just hadn't listened to them. So I'm still quite a newbie.
What you, Sheldon? I think before we started, you said you haven't listened to that one that much.
I haven't listened to it a lot, but I do have some memory of it. I feel about the same way as I do for the one that came before it. I actually saw that band live. It was very good. It was. It feels a bit dated to me right now. I mean, it was John McLaughlin sailing into like very heavy, high tech, I guess, like MIDI guitar and synth guitar, and so. Really, I mean, the whole vibe of that album is very much just sort of high tech, a lot of sort of harsh, blaring sounds. I can listen to it, but it's not an album I'd really choose to put on most of the time because it's just like very jarring and very like in your face in a way that most of his other albums aren't. So I would probably list it pretty low down on the rankings, frankly.
Yeah, I think it's in the right place. When you talk to the sort of general MAHAVISHNU Orchestra fan base, they tend to rate this one a little bit higher than the one that went before it. And I think the reason is because there's more actual electric guitar on it, and it's a little bit more in your face. I think the whole synclavier thing was quite confusing with this band on record with the other album. And I think because of that, live, it must have been, and Sheldon, you saw them, it must have been interesting to see John playing the synth guitar live because he's playing, but...
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. You're watching him do it, and so you can relate to it. But if you listen to an album like this, it's kind of half the time it's like, what am I listening to here? I hear these sounds and things going on, but is it the keyboard player? Is it the guitar? I mean, could be Bill Evans on some sax synth or something. So yeah, it's kind of like very disorienting in a way.
Well, it's at number 9, I'll just double check because I don't want to get this wrong. Yeah, at number 9 we have the first album, which is simply called MAHAVISHNU, that came out in around about 1984. that album was released on Warner Brothers, and so John McLaughlin had a major labor deal, and I've always felt that this 80s band was really had to sell units, it had to push units. The Warner Brothers album, I feel, is better produced, and then obviously it didn't quite work because eventually Radioland is on Relativity Records, and I always felt it's a little let down by the production, So what about you, Joseph? Do you know these two albums?
Yes, I do. I've been listening to them a great deal since I saw what we were going to be doing today.
Yeah,
and I there's nothing more to be said other than what's been said already. It's, first of all, not my favorite Mahavishnu era. I love the beginning. I love we'll talk about that later on, I'm sure. Yeah. It seems to be lacking in realism in actual music. Again, the synclavier and stuff, I'm not a big fan. And again, what's been said already has been said. So I'll just let you go on and continue.
What about you, Doran? What do you think to these two 80s MAHAVISHNU Orchestra albums?
Well, these are my least favorite, from the entire flock. I guess, like most people, getting into those later years is much more difficult. It's very difficult to understand what they were really striving for, and for me it's a lot about the production. So it's really the production. There is so much I don't like about it that it's very difficult for me to really hang in there for the entire album, and especially when I'm a huge synthesizer fan, but there are bands that once they started using specific synthesizers or specific sounds, it's a turnoff for me, and I just can't get past it, and I get mad, and I go listen to, a bootleg from Buffalo or New York in 1972. I mean, I think one of the beautiful things about Mahavishnu is like the amount of bootlegs you get today is just this is all I listen to today. I don't even listen to albums anymore. I just listen to bootlegs. And I just, I told you this, I think a month ago. I take one song and I go and listen to it like, 7 different bootlegs, and I start ranking it like for myself. And with those later albums, I just can't really seem to find the music in it.
Music has to grab you, doesn't it? And that doesn't grab me. I think there was an 80s. I think there's an 80s sound that everyone tried to emulate, and I think it sounds really dated now, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's dated. Yeah.
I mean, to champion what is good about those albums. For start off, on the Mahavishnu album, you've got Billy Cobham and John McLaughlin back together. Radioactivity, the track that opens up, I love that. And when I was a kid and I heard Billy and John back together, that's a wonderful thing. And I think the first album is also elevated for having Billy Cobham on. It seemed to go all awry. I don't know what happened, why Billy wasn't around even for the first tour. He was gone, and they got Dan Gottlieb in, and I think Dan Gottlieb, who had played before with Pat Metheny, he's a fantastic drummer, but not the right drummer for John.
Mellow.
I can remember I once met Jonas Hellborg, and he told me a lot about that band, and he said that there was some incredible stuff they were doing, because they started off as a trio of just Jonas, John, and Billy, and they were doing all the sort of just the drum and guitar duets that they used to do in the Mahavishnu Orchestra. I think there was pressure from the label, Warner Brothers, to produce something at the time which would sell, and I don't think Fusion was as big a seller at that point. And sort of after that project, John sort of disappears really, and then he comes back completely different, I think. One of the things I've got to say about the album is there are some really good compositions on there, and Florianopolis has become a sort of standard, and even on the new Shakti album, it crops up. I heard Florianopolis crept in at one point, so that's become a staple for John. So there's some really good tunes on there. I often wonder if it was remixed, if you could actually just strip off all the horrible DX7s and, you know, make the synclavier a little bit more biting, and, you know, get rid of all the reverby drums and stuff like that. But yeah, I think in terms of 80s fusion albums, they're pretty good. It's not
just produced
like,
bad.
Like, it's not like GL, you know, it's not like a Dave Grusin album, or, you know.
Yeah, but that's setting a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
Honestly. I mean, I think about all the records I bought back then and basically threw them away eventually. It's like, yeah, this sucks.
But there are some really good moments. I think it's just, you know, why has it got the Mahavishnu name on it? You know, and so that's where we're at. So at number 7, we have Inner Worlds.
Oh.
So that is at number 8. It is like a proper video. I always get my numbers wrong. So 10, Adventures of Radioland, 9, Mahavishnu, and number 8 we have Inner Worlds. Now, Inner Worlds is the last album by the Narada Michael Walden version of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and it's a bit of an anomaly, and it scored pretty low, really. It's so in terms of the if can I get back in focus? Come on. In terms of the real Mahavishnu Orchestra, which we will call that the 70s Mahavishnu Orchestra, this is the final one. So again, Steve, what do you think to this one?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not one of my favourites. To be honest, I've only got 3. I have listened to others, but I've only got 3, and you probably guess what they are anyway. But again, yeah, I mean, I am a 70s guy at the end of the day.
Sheldon, what do you think to Inner Worlds?
It's one of those things where I'm not going to claim it's a great album, but I do like it. It has kind of a little place in my heart. It's kind of like you take the second phase Mahavishnu Orchestra, the big one, you strip it down to a quartet, and you know they're obviously, you know, just like sitting in the same room going for it, and you know the drums are great. You know, it's like a period piece of the times, but I mean there's some good stuff on it, and the playing is very raw and live. So, you know, just as a piece of music, if you take away the Mahavishnu sort of brand or whatever, and just say here's like 4 guys doing like a studio recording of some, you know, sort of funky fusion-y stuff, you know, I think it holds up pretty well for the time.
Yeah, I think it's a very good album. It's just a departure, you know. Why is my camera? I'm going to unplug that.
Yeah,
you might have
one of those days today, isn't it? You're going to get back in. There we go. Let's see if that's what. There we go. Sorry about. Yeah, I think it's a very good album. I think the production's incredible. The drum sound and the sound of the band's incredible.
I love that, yeah.
They're playing, you know, by the seat of their pants. I think Miles Out is possibly the most extreme Mahavishnu moment in the discography, and that track alone elevates the whole album. There's some good stuff on there. I remember putting it on once and really studying it, and I remember thinking a lot of these tunes aren't really tunes. They're jams.
Yeah.
And the tunes that are tunes are Narada Michael Walden tunes, and I think it's a very good Narada Michael Walden album. But he almost like takes over on that.
Yeah. The singing and all
It
that.
is the drumming that's a standout on that album, I think.
So I guess the last thing I'd say is, for me, it's like I really have no patience. You hear music where it's obvious that they're rehearsed to the gills, no chance of an error, no chance of a wrong note, and even no matter how, you know, how good an album it is, at some point you sort of go, yeah, I'm getting a little kind of like a little bored here. It's obvious the band's taking no chances here. This is exact opposite. I mean, those guys are in there just flailing away just, going at 110%. You can hear the rough spots and anything, and they don't care. They just like keep sailing on, and I really admire that.
I when I first bought it, I remember thinking it sounds like Santana. It doesn't sound like the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra. It sounds like Santana at certain points. I think the opening track. I think Miles Out's fantastic. I think Lotus Feet is one of John's best compositions.
That's good.
But I think the problem is at this point his heart was in Shakti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel that the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra had been it meant something to John. He was trying to communicate something spiritual, and I think he had done that at that point. I think he'd actually achieved it, and then the whole thing comes crashing down, because it's at that point that he sort of stops being a, well, he's always said he's always been a follower of Sri Chinmoy, but I think at that point, he's I think his marriage broke up. I think his then wife went off with somebody else, another guitarist that was part of the Sri Chinmoy group, and I think he'd lost the raison d'etre for the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra. That's what I felt is the problem with that, and that sort of dark, brooding spirituality that's in there. That's not on that album, is it? It's just not on there, even though they're playing and doing all that stuff. It's not on there. What about you, Joseph? Do you like it? I mean, it's a good album.
I agree with you 100%. I'm a huge King Crimson fan, and I love them because of their darkness, that edge that they have, that puts you on almost an angst of human belief. And John McLaughlin, and thank you, by the way, for straightening me out. I'm 66 years old. And for 50 years, I got into the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra when I was 14 with Birds of Fire. We'll talk about that later. I wish that John McLaughlin, like everyone that I knew, it's
Not
McLaughlin.
me.
Well, thank you.
But when I first started the channel, I got it. I used to say John McLaughlin, and I think doing the research, because of the about 5,000 comments I've had of people saying you say it wrong, and I've done a lot of research, and I actually have got a little video which is a loop of John saying his own name
over and over again,
and I think it's my favorite video on the channel.
Hi, I'm John McLaughlin. 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 Hi, I'm John McLaughlin.
And I wish we'd been on for longer. I mean,
that and the biscuits.
I think it's John McLaughlin.
It is.
That's the proper pronunciation.
Yes.
Yeah, I've done one service to mankind. It's at least it's that. Yeah, but you are totally right. John represents for me this dark. It's like spiritual, but it's also full of angst at the same time.
Which is what human nature is.
Yeah, and John's got it in buckets until 1976, and then after 1976, it's all sunshine and light, and it's gone. It's like going a French cafe. Yeah, and I love all that too.
Good for him, but bad for us.
And I think if you step back, it's so angst-ridden, the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra. Shakti is like the other side of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, and I think Shakti is incredible. The 70s Shakti's albums are incredible. And they seem to go through that line for the first one, which is just brutal, and then the middle one, which is quite open. It's a mixture, and then the last one, Handful of Beauty, is he's moving towards this much more sunshiny place, but it's got both elements in it. So, but I think
he's still an amazing guitarist, an amazing musician, but he moved away from what I'm searching for.
Yeah.
Which was that darkness. I love that.
Loads of people have said. I mean, I've done a video just on this to try to discuss this. So it's very interesting. And also, I think John's bands, the people are very important. So the personalities have an effect. And I think with the first incarnation of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, he really struck gold. There's someone, we'll get onto that. Have you got anything, Doran, to say about this about Inner Worlds?
I think you said it all. It's a good album. It's a good album. I can't say that it's not a good album. It has very good production. It's not far off from the Emerald style. I do like Stu. You know, I know that I do like his stuff, and I think he's taking, you know, that approach, taking what Jan was doing and giving it like a different sort of style. And and there are songs that I actually really like. Miles Out. I also like Inner Worlds. I know it's like not a lot.
Oh, I love Inner Worlds. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great closing for the album, and it's just excellent. And if there's one thing I miss in this album is that menacing, you know, the darkness and the edge, and that, you know, that tipping that you're almost on the edge of the cliff going to fall. It's not there. Everybody said it, and this is what we're looking for.
How about this then? If it had a violin in there, do you think it would have been more Mahavishnu-y? That's the other big thing. All the other albums are drenched with violin. You've got Jerry Goodman, one of the greatest violinists ever. Then Jean-Luc Ponty, another great violin player, and they bring something to the sound.
Yeah.
The Moog, John's guitar, and violin is the Mahavishnu Orchestra. You haven't got that on there. And
no,
that makes a difference.
It's very different, but I still try to like it, and I succeed to like it, because it's important for me to like it, and to be, you know, to understand that movement that they've done from, you know, 71 to 76. And it's just the end of the road for me. You know, it's the dawn. If Emerald of the Visions Beyond is like the dawn, and everything before that is night. So it's like Emerald is like, you see that little sunshine starting, and then after that it's morning, and there's, you know, it's like a party. In the night everything is very mysterious, and then when it's morning in the after party, you see everybody, and it's different.
Without a doubt. We will move now to number, I'll check it before I guess it. I think it's number 7. So number 7, we have the Lost Trident Sessions. Now, for anyone watching this, trying to get their head around the Mahavishnu Orchestra, the Lost Trident Sessions are exactly that. Is that the first incarnation of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, which was Billy Cobham, Jerry Goodman on violin, John McLaughlin on guitar, obviously, Jan Hammer on keyboards, and Rick Laird on bass, went into the studio to make a third album. And they all fell out. And apparently John left the sessions for this album crying, and it got lost. And I think the engineer, could have been Ken Scott, but I'm not sure, had done a mix halfway through the making of this album, and this was discovered and released some 20 years later. The Lost Trident Sessions contain material that was then re-recorded on the Live Between Nothingness and Eternity album, and then a few extra tracks. And as I get to that point, my favorite moment on this is the last track on the album, and I can't remember what it's called.
John's song number 2.
John's song number 2. Yeah, I knew it was something to do with John. So this hasn't really even got a name, hasn't it? But that there is one of the great moments of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. So, Steve, what's your thoughts on Lost Trident Sessions?
To be fair, I've never heard it, so
I don't
can't really comment.
We'll have to do Your I Eat next week.
Yeah, that's it.
And then I can sit there going, never heard it. Steve's just there for when we get to the top 3, I think. And then he's going to come into his own at that point.
I'll tell you my take. I love this album. It's not number 7 for me. It's higher. It's the one I actually, today I listened to it more, because I can't listen to the old stuff anymore. And this is a great album for me. It's like all the mistakes, everything they didn't want, you know, to have to release. And of course, everything is great. I mean, Dream, Trilogy, Sister Andrea. I mean, these are all classics today. You know, we kind of learned about them from Nothingness, right? But but this is where it started. Probably, I think it's great. I couldn't understand when I heard it why it was not released, why it fell apart, like in 1973 or 73. I think it was recorded. It's I understand, you know, it fell apart, but it's a sad ending to the lineup, the classic lineup.
Yeah. Sheldon?
I'm not really familiar with this one. I'll have to give it a good listen now that people said such glowing things about it. So I'll do that. But
yeah, well,
I can't speak to it.
You can listen to songs, John's song number 2. That's incredible. It's got stepping tones on it, hasn't it? Which that appeared on Like Children, the Jan Hammer, Jerry Goodman.
Yeah, it's
album, which that Jan Hammer, Jerry Goodman
it.
album is more of a MAHAVISHNU Orchestra album than, say, the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra 80s albums for me. I really wish back to those in. But what about you, Joseph? Do you know the Lost Trident set?
I do not. But since you said that it's the original lineup, I'm going to make a point to listen to it because I love the original lineup. Jan Hammer, Cobham, such an amazing amalgamation of musicians. It's sent from heaven, if you will. So I will give it a listen, but I'm not familiar with it, so I really can't rank it honestly.
Well, one of the things with the Lost Trident sessions for me is when you get In a Mountain Flame, it's very raw, isn't it? And John's got he got Les Paul plugged into a Marshall amp, and he's all over the place. It's incredible. But it's a specific thing. On Birds of Fire, John's guitar playing is actually quite subdued. There isn't really any blisteringly fast John McLaughlin solos on Birds of Fire. No one ever says this.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah,
fast, but you know, guitar playing on Between Nothingness and Eternity, but it's live. This is where I think you hear John in a different. He's really off the scale at this point. And I always felt that his guitar sound changed as he got the SG. There's elements with the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra that creep in as you listen to them, and those elements are really solid. So it's just so frustrating. This album was so frustrating. I think John's intention was to have a orchestra on this album, and I think those recordings were going to be embellished with an orchestra. I think that was the plan. And there's a little bit of a feeling that it is slightly unfinished, but the playing and the compositions are all there, and I think it's an essential purchase if you're a MAHAVISHNU, original MAHAVISHNU fan. You've got to have it.
It's also very democratic, right? There's like I think I'm reading here. Stepping Stones was written by Rick Laird. I Wonder is a Jerry Goodman tune.
Yeah.
Sister Andrea is a Jan Hammer tune. So it's like maybe this is even part of the problems, you know, with the album, that it's not too coherent and everybody wanted to bring their own thing and eventually it didn't work out. But it's very interesting to see what that band was like at that point.
No, I always feel that you know, John may have been right. The band were they were wanting to bring their compositions in, and he was trying to accommodate for that. And I think the problem with the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra was cursed by its success. So if it had just been any other fusion band and sold, you know, 15,000 copies, no one would have cared. But when all that money was there, the musicians were thinking, well, I contributed this bit and I contributed that bit, you know. So if you look at something like One Word, which is definitely a John McLaughlin composition, he was playing it in Tony Williams' lifetime, but a good third of that is a drum solo, which is a structured drum solo, but by Billy Cobham, so he doesn't get a credit, you know. And there's all these sorts of things all over the place, and I think that's where the crack started. I think then he starts to bring all these different compositions in, and in a way, it's all pulling apart. And I wonder whether having all John's compositions, especially on In a Mountain Flame, gives it that sort of. He's got a vision, you know. So, but it's an essential album. It's you know, we're going into the great realm already now. So at number 6, we have Apocalypse. which is the album made in 1974. It's the first album by the second incarnation of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, which I always call the Narada Michael Walden, you know, because he played on the second incarnation.
Right.
This is an expanded group. It featured a brass section, a string quartet. We've got Gail Moran on keyboards and vocals. It's got vocals in it. We've got Jean-Luc Ponty on violin, who's a heavyweight, you know, a heavyweight player. Ralph Armstrong on bass, who is phenomenal. Narada Michael Walden on drums, the greatest drummer that's ever lived. Then the string section, there's a violinist called Stephen Kindler, who is that ended up cropping up in Jan Hammer's group. He's an excellent violin player as well. It's an incredible band. This album, I think, it's an incredible achievement. It really is. And I think it's this expanded lineup in a recording studio. I think it's in Air Studios, isn't it? With George Martin producing. You've got the London Symphony Orchestra. They're playing live at the same time. They were pushing the technology to the limits. You know, I think it was one of the first albums that used a video link, because Narada was so loud they had to put him in a separate room, and he was watching the conductor, which is Michael Tilson Thomas. This is something else. You know, Michael Tilson Thomas, George Martin producing. We've got vocals, a full orchestra. It's an incredible achievement, and I think it's an absolutely incredible album. That's my opinion on this.
It's like Deep Purple with orchestra.
Oh, it's way better than that.
It's like the Deep Purple with way better.
Well, the thing with Deep Purple with orchestra, if you listen to that album, the orchestra plays, the band plays, and then the orchestra plays, the band plays. But in this, they integrate it in every possible way. And that bit where, you know, when they're soloing and the orchestra's going, you know, that's sort of John McLaughlin's best guitar playing ever. And long open solos, like a live album. The MAHAVISHNU Orchestra had one of the greatest drummers in the world, if not the greatest drummer alive, which is Billy Cobham. How do you replace Billy Cobham? And you have on this album a 19-year-old Narada Michael Walden, whose entry into the sort of public sphere is that drum solo at the beginning of his Vision and Naked Sword, or whatever it's called, the Wings. That's incredible. It's absolutely. So I really love this incarnation of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra.
Vision is a Naked Sword.
Yeah,
that's the long one. Yeah,
that drum solo at the start, you know, it's incredible. The other thing worth mentioning about this is that if you read George Martin's autobiography, the Smile of the Beyond, the Gail Moran singing with the orchestra, and then the band kicks in, that it was one of his favorite production moments with all the Beatles there. That, I mean, George Martin saw this as a special album, so it's an incredible album. And here it is at number 6.
Right. Well, if there hadn't been a first incarnation of Mahavishnu, which of course is like the iconic definitive version, then, you know, this album and Visions of Emma will be able to get a lot more attention than they do.
Yeah.
But, you know, how do you compete with the original quintet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I listened to this album when I was, you know, over and over again, and just, you know, just loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I think as time's gone on, people have gone back to it.
Yeah.
Vision is a Naked Sword. That MAHAVISHNU Orchestra do certain things. They do the Dance of Maya thing, which they also do, you know, on Lila's Dance and Birds of Fire. There's a certain heaviness, arpeggiated thing. That orchestral version is the heaviest thing in the world. Down, 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 you know, that bit, down, 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 down. It's unbelievable. The only criticism I've got of this album is that what they're trying to record is pushing the technology at the time to the limits. I think Narada's kit's got 4 mics on it or something, so the drum sound is not, you know, I'm always focused on the drums, but the drum sound is a little bit thin. I've always felt, but that's my only criticism of this album. Everything else is incredible.
My little criticism is more in there's something about Gail Moran which I didn't like too much in this album. I think this is my only criticism, just that little bit. I know it's a little childish, but everything else is in fact really good. I couldn't tell if the drums were better or worse.
I'm always very drum focused.
You're a clinic,
and I'm a massive Narada Michael Walton fan. And part of the thing I like is those incredible toms and his big sound, and he's playing is incredible.
And this is the first time that he is playing with John. This is the first thing that they ever did together.
And it's his first thing ever. He played him.
Wow.
He'd never really done anything. He was 19 years old.
How did they meet?
He through Sri Chinmoy, he was going to Sri Chinmoy meetings, and I think towards the end of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, John, because of the fact that they weren't followers, he was toying with the idea of pulling a band together that had more followers in it, and he sort of the story of him meeting Narada, and then John said to Narada, they met at a MAHAVISHNU Orchestra grid. Narada had gone to see them live, and he said, "Well, I'll come back to your house." And there's his band jammed at the house, and the story of him turning up at his house with John McLaughlin, and then it's his band, and he said John was like playing the guitar, and he said it was just brutal music coming off him, and he was just sitting there with no expression, just staring at Narada. So he was obviously putting him to the test, So it's I won't spoil it, but it's an incredible story.
Amazing.
Narada's something else. I mean, my two favorite drummers are Billy Cobb and Narada. They are the two greats, and I think what he does on this album is incredible. Because anybody else, it would have been a step down.
Mm-hmm.
It's an absolutely brilliant album. Joseph, do you know this album, Apocalypse?
I love the album. The album, but it took me a while, simply because I am such a fan of the original MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, and I grew up with it. I was 14 when the first album came out. I was 15 when Birds of Fire came out, and that's the first album I really heard. And so I got into the albums, and then when they made this shift, it was at the time where every band was making shifts. Prague was making shifts. Fusion was making shifts. And it was a horrible time for me as a music lover, because everything was going away and disco was taking over. And I wanted to, I was one of those disco sucks buttons on my shirt and whatnot. So it took it. I did not like it initially. I had to go back to it years later, which is maybe 20 years ago. And I realized it's an absolutely incredible album. But nothing like the original, which we'll get to later on.
Yeah, we will. And
but it, as far as musicianship goes, it's top notch. It's incredible. The drumming is phenomenal. Everyone is just at the top of their game.
Yeah.
I
never had a problem with Gail Moran singing, although she has ruined many a great jazz fusion album in the years to come. And if you really want to hear something, I would say horrible. I'll say horrible. Her solo album.
Oh,
it's really hard to find, but if you ever hear her, it's full Scientology. It's nowhere near the Chick Corea Stanley Clarke album that they made for L. Ron Hubbard. That is something else. That is the worst album ever made in history. But the Gail Moran one is just it's horrible.
And it's everywhere, right? There are like a few years where it's everywhere, like Spanish Fantasy, Chick Corea.
Yeah.
She's like everywhere and you can't get away from it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Shall we move on?
Yes.
So at number 5, we have Between Nothingness and Eternity, the bonus disc. So they brought out a box set of the MAHAVISHNU albums, right? And they brought two out. And there was an expanded one and a not expanded one. And I bought the not expanded one just because that time I would buy everything. And my friend bought the expanded one and he lent it to me. And I went, oh, there's another disc in here. And in there is another disc of the other material from the Between Nothingness and Eternity recordings, which were live. What we have here is the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra at their peak, 1973, playing Dance of Maya, playing Vital Transformation, all the classic songs, properly recorded. Now, we all know, anybody who listens to the bootlegs, is you do not understand the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra unless you hear them live. And what they do live, they don't do on Between Nothingness and Eternity. That's not, it's a different thing. But they do it on this disc. And as time has gone on, this is really why I wanted to have another go at these albums, just to stick this in the mix, because I think this will become the definitive MAHAVISHNU album.
Absolutely.
And I listened to it again twice this week because of this. And it took my head off.
Who signed it?
Is that Between Nothingness and Eternity signed that you've got?
Is it signed?
It's signed by Billy Cobham.
Really?
Woo!
Yes, sir.
Nice.
Nice. Nice.
Yes.
So how many of you have heard the bonus disc?
I haven't heard the bonus. This is the original copy.
Yeah.
From how many years ago?
That's the next story. I'm giving the game away, but that's going to be the next one. Is that one? So we'll get to that one in a minute.
Love it.
And there's a remaster from 2011, I think, which is really good, really good.
But let's just stick on, because I really do want to champion, if anyone watching this video that is a MAHAVISHNU Orchestra fan of the original lineup and that hasn't heard the bonus material, the bonus disc, it's on Spotify. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. And there's things on there that they just don't do anywhere else. That Jan Hammer keyboard solo where he gets that sequencer going is just incredible. You know, there's solo sections. It's mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. Have you heard it, Sheldon? I know Steve hasn't.
I listened to it once and it sounded really good. I'll have to go back and listen to it again.
Well, when I got it, I was like, oh god, this disc, and I almost like listened to it out of a duty. And I was like, yeah, that's live MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, you know. But as time has gone on, the more I've listened to it, it's almost like you could, if you had to have one album by them, it could well be this one. I know this is a really contentious thing.
It's really complete. It's really complete. It doesn't have the problems that the records have. So it's better produced. There's a great selection of songs. It's the great lineup. It's like everything you wanted, you know. It's like the best of or something.
And I think because I know I'm going to come back and do this over and over again, because it's only occurred to me. It's almost like an anomaly in the discography. But I thought well, let's put it in and see what coming in. And it's come up higher than Apocalypse.
Yeah.
On everyone's voting. It is something else. And of course, this was recorded the same. I think they did 2 nights, and I think this is the one night, and then the other night they performed the material that would have been on the album that became the Lost Trident Sessions, and this becomes Between Nothingness and Eternity, and that's what we have at number 4. Right, so we got number 4. We have Between Nothingness and Eternity. So what do people think of this? Steve, have you got that one?
No, I don't.
You haven't got Between Nothingness and Eternity?
I haven't, no.
Anyone else got anything to say on this one? Doran, you are sitting in it.
I'm in it.
Joseph, you've got it there, Simon Billy Cobham. What do you think about it?
I love it. I absolutely love it. But the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra live is the original is always amazing. Whenever I have a moment on my own without my wife, you can tell I come downstairs and I'll sit in my easy chair and I'll put that album on and just drift away. It is absolutely amazing. It's the original Mahavishnu Orchestra, Jan Hammer, Rick Laird. It's just fantastic.
If they knew how, I think if they knew how successful, you know, over the years this would be, at that time, they already could have released more live albums. It's just they never did. And a lot of them were filmed. I mean, what you see today on YouTube is just unbelievable.
Right.
This music wasn't popular. It still really isn't. But thankfully for YouTube, which a lot of artists say that sharing files and whatnot is destroying the music. No, it destroyed the business. It's actually making more music available to more people than the radio stations did back when I was a child, when I was a teenager.
That's a tough discussion. Whether destroying the business wouldn't eventually have, you know, a very dramatic impact on the music.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The only problem is that, you know, when I was in IQ, when we made an album, it cost £20,000 to make the album. And now people aren't spending £20,000 on an album. And I can hear it. The new Shakti album, that's been made in people's bedrooms.
But Andy, that's now, it's fresh, it's brand new. Eventually, hopefully, it will go to where we demand better production.
Yeah.
Where you know what I mean?
But you won't, because the computers, I mean, this is a completely different discussion. Maybe we'll have this one next week, because it's so, you know, I think we'll go off on a tangent here.
Yeah.
But going back to Between Nothingness in Eternity, for me, there's a brutality to the Inner Mountain Flame, and John's all over the place. Birds of Fire is absolutely beautiful, but he's actually quite restrained in a way. Not always, but a lot of the time, it's not quite as brutal. This album's got both of those things, and they just, it's like, if you like the Mahavishnu Orchestra, it's like they turn it up to 10. And Dream, which is like 20 minutes long, is just almost like Summit Mahavishnu. When I was a kid, I used to sit and put it on and go, I just wish it sounded a little bit better, because the original mix is a little bit muddy. As Doran says, in 2011, it was remasters, remixed, and it's and now it is something else. But I know people who love that sound. I can remember when I did the clinic tour with Simon Phillips, Simon's favorite album by the Mahavishnu Orchestra was Between Nothingness and Eternity, and I think there are people out there that it is the best one, which is very interesting. And if we move on to the next one now, we move on to number 3. So we've got 3 albums left. This is going to upset. It's going to upset the Mahavishnu fans out there. I know the comments. So if you're about to put a comment up now, right? This isn't me this time. This is all, I got 100 patrons and they were voting, and this is where it's come. So one of the most important albums in the history of music, the album that invents jazz fusion, is at number 3, The Inner Mountain Flame, the debut album by the Mahavishnu Orchestra. For many people, not just one of the greatest Mahavishnu Orchestra. We've got it at 3, and I agree. The 2 above it are better.
I put it at 2, but I'll go with 3.
Yeah, you'll go. Yeah, so this is a monstrous album. It's incredible, isn't it?
You can joke about it that it's like the most important album of the 70s, but it's only the 3rd best album of the Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Yeah, that's exactly it. For anyone watching this video, I'm going to try and sum it up. This is an essential album. It's just the Mahavishnu Orchestra are the greatest band of all time, and this is why there's 2 albums above it. But this is an essential album. When those 5 got together, there was a magic, and each of them were bringing in something that was essential to the mix. All of them, and it's unique. It's not like Weather Report, right? Because Weather Report was full of jazz virtuosos. This isn't that. Jerry Goodman was
Not
a
like Return to
classically
Forever.
trained violinist, a virtuoso, classically trained violinist
That's the
that was a
thing.
Hendrix fan, and that's a certain sound. Jan Hammer is a where's he from? I've forgotten. Czech
Republic.
Yeah, he's a Czech, you know, child prodigy jazz pianist that doesn't want to play jazz anymore, and he's pushing synthesis. I mean, he invents the sound of jazz fusion in the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra when he starts playing the Moog. Rick Laird is
the pitch wheel, playing with the pitch. I think he was the first.
Billy Cobham, you know, he's just reinvented drumming, and they're playing on times which Don Ellis had done and Frank Zappa had done, but Billy Cobham showed the way to play on times in a way that was divided up in a certain way. They're all pulling from Indian influences. It's not just John. And of course Rick Laird, who I've studied Rick Laird's career quite a bit. This guy was an incredible bass player that had played with Sonny Rollins, Ross and Ronald Kirk in London at the time with all those players, including players like Jack Bruce was playing double bass. He was the house player in the Ronnie Scott's group. He played Wes Montgomery. This guy could play anything, right? So this is the guy that could negotiate those charts. Because the famous story is that I think it was which player was it? When the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra was formed, I think Jan Hammer got the charts and he took them over to John Abercrombie's house, and John Abercrombie was like, I don't understand this at all. I mean, this is completely new. And Rick, it wasn't, oh, you know, he wasn't flashy, but he was playing those tunes. You know, it's incredible. So it's an incredible thing. This chemistry is together. They go into the studio. They got 2 days in the studio to make this album. The first day gets wasted because they're so loud, the engineer walks out. So what you hear is the band that has just formed, playing the hardest stuff that's ever been written, playing it down in 1 day with the meters pins. You know, Billy Cobham's playing a tiny little drum kit. There's no Moog. This is an unbelievable achievement. God knows what that band was on to be able to pull that off.
Unbelievable.
It's incredible. It's my punk rock. This album is. It's that moment I had, you know,
it's professionalism at its peak.
Yeah, it's. I think the problem for me is that the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra start at this point and then they go forward. And there's certain sounds that we associate with the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra that aren't quite on this album. The two for me being Cobham's big drum sound with the double bass drums and the big cascading toms and the Moog and those melodies.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. So, but this is something else, and I'm really. I mean, has anyone got anything else to say about this album? I really wanted to say that speech because anyone watching this video is thinking, oh, they put it at number 3. You've got to have it.
There's one thing.
It changed music.
Yeah,
it flipped music upside down.
And if I was putting an album on a spaceship, you know, when they put stuff on a spaceship, so when the aliens find it, they can see what's the best. You know, if it was it would be this album and not the ones that are above it, because there's something else.
What I like about it is that it's surprising, not surprising in the sense musically, you know, it's surprising because John was on his way to change the world. I mean, we knew that from 1969 that he was trying to change the world. Yeah. The fact that he changed the world with Jerry Goodman and Rick Laird, this is the thing that really drives me crazy. I mean, those two guys, they're not superstars, you know? And yet I find it like an amazing accident that he couldn't get Jean-Luc Ponty at that point, and he got Jerry Goodman. I think this album would not
Jerry
be
Goodman's way better than Jean-Luc Ponty.
Yeah, but he is not like the star he wanted, right?
I know exactly what I mean. He wanted different players and he didn't get them. I know exactly what you're saying.
And that's the happy accident somehow. And it's like so singular in time. I mean, it couldn't have happened unless all these things, you know, were put together. I just love Jerry Goodman's.
The stars aligned.
Yeah, the stars aligned. Yep.
I always felt that Jerry Goodman, for a fusion band to really, they
He's like the
always make
secret
it when they
weapon.
have a star. And you know, with Weather Report, they were this sort of esoteric, you know, electric jazz band until Jacko came in, and Jacko was a rock star, and they made it. You know, John McLaughlin was a rock star. He was iconic. But Jerry Goodman, I can remember when I first read about the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra and I saw my first photograph, which was in the pocket of the Observer's pocket book of jazz. And I bought this little book and I opened it up and I was going through looking at Louis Armstrong and, you know, Billie Holiday. And then I opened this page and John was sat there, you know, with his double neck guitar with a white suit on. And in the background was Jerry Goodman with the long hair. And I went, oh God, what the hell's this? I've got to get... Jerry Goodman was a rock star. He really was. And I feel that Jerry Goodman doesn't get the props because he's not a jazz guy. They don't understand that the elements of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, it's a jazz rock band, and he brings it in on violin.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah. Amazing.
And how the hell this guy that you know could negotiate 1916 time, and so it's incredible. It's incredible. It's something else.
Of course, he's not a jazz musician. He with the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, they perfectly integrated jazz and rock. It was never
my
done
point
before.
is that this is the bizarre thing with the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, right? If they decided to play All the Things You Are or Stella by Starlight, they could,
Right.
and they would be world class. Except for Jerry. Jerry's and I'm not. This is no criticism, but this is the magical thing. Jerry now, I'm sure, you know, 50 years of playing and play everything. But when he comes in, he's a phenomenal classical player.
Yeah,
really phenomenal. And he's a basically Hendrix on the violin. It's something else. And I think without that in there, he's jumping through all the hoops. But the rest of them, you know, Rick Laird, Billy Cobham, John McLaughlin, and Jan Hammer, they could have sit and played Body and Soul just like that. I mean, they really were. They really. I don't think people really appreciate what this band did. Now, another observation I've had with this album is the Frank Zappa influence, and I wonder whether it's there or not. Because if you listen to Hot Rats, which is the year before, you've got this sort of electric rock and jazz, not like Bitches Brew, not like In a Silent Way, a lot
Really
and you've got violin all over it, including Jean-Luc Ponty. Now, John McLaughlin has always said that he had the violin because his mum that played violin, blah, blah, blah. But if you go and check out King Kong, which is a Zappa-produced, or you go listen to those, and there's moments where you go, this sound is sort of there.
Yeah.
And I think Hot Rats is a little bit of a precursor. And I would love to ask John McLaughlin if he was listening to Hot Rats when he put this together. I don't know.
Could be.
Yeah. Because Don Sugarcane Harris, who's the other violinist, he's like a Jerry Goodman. He's playing blues violin, basically. He hasn't got Jerry's chops, but he's got that sort of blues sound. And so I think we'll move on.
I
shouldn't have to look. So at number 2, we have Visions of the Emerald Beyond, which is not the original MAHAVISHNU Orchestra.
Joseph is surprised.
Yeah, number 2, we have Visions of the Emerald Beyond. I'm glad you're here, Joseph. You're shocked, aren't you?
I'm not shocked. You thought this would be a first place?
No.
He'd forgotten about it.
Ooh.
Number 2, my patrons have voted, right? Because it's not me. I did put
Andy's favorite.
I did vote in all of them. This has come up at number 2, Visions of the Emerald Beyond, which of course is the greatest album ever made. And I'm sure my opinion that it is has not influenced my patrons at all. The fact that I only set up my channel to single-handedly put across to the world the Visions of the Emerald Beyond is the greatest album ever made.
In fact, we wanted to spite you.
Because you just can't be number 1. So what do you think to this album?
It's the first one that I ever heard, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
tell us what you think about it, Steve.
I was absolutely gobsmacked when I heard it because, you know, I was listening to Uriah Heep, and I mean, there was a number of us, and we used to take albums along and this, that, and the other. And this guy just turned up with this album, and I thought, what's that? Look, you know, I heard that. What's this then? And he put it on, and the first thing I thought, I liked the cover. You know, I like the cover of that. I wonder if the music's any good, and it was absolutely fantastic. And it was actually a number of years before I even really realised who it was. I'd heard it, and I'd not heard it again for quite a while until I came across it. And it was literally the cover, and I thought, I remember that, and I have actually got that one, and it's one of my favourites to be honest. But it sort of had an impression on me. But it was one of those that you sort of, I wonder who that was. Because nobody else I knew had got it. So I was saying, do you remember that? Oh, I don't know. Could have been anything. And it wasn't until it was literally the cover that that attracted me back into it, if you see what I mean. And then I played it. I thought, oh, yeah, this is it. So, yeah, it is one of my favourites, to be honest.
So, Joseph, if you've heard this album, haven't you, Visions of the Emerald Beyond?
Yes, sir.
And what do you think of to it?
I put it at number 3.
That's not so bad, though, is it?
That's not so bad. Yeah.
No. The first 3 albums for me are the epitome of Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Yeah.
I love my first. We'll talk about later. Birds of Fire, obviously. Visions of the Emerald Beyond. It's a good album, but it seems to lack the darkness that I want.
It's the dawn. It's the dawn. It's just the end of darkness. You know,
it's almost there.
It's all.
But it just lacks that little bit over the edge, which is what I need from this, from McLaughlin.
But when you hear the first song, don't you get goosebumps like when the first song starts?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. No, it's a fantastic album. It's wonderful. But we're ranking favorites.
Yeah.
Now, my problem is, do I rank my favorites because of what they sound like, or because of when I heard them? Because when I was very impressionable when it came to music, when I was a teenager, do I like this because I was impressionable or because it was that good? I mean, I love early Alice Cooper stuff. Would I like it today? And that's of the whole different discussion. So my view about the Mahavishnu Orchestra and their albums ranking are based on my history and my maturation musically. So
I know where you're coming from because I'm a similar age to you, and as you say, for me, it was at the time it was amazing. It was totally different, and I think I sort of let it go and then came back to it later, if you know what I mean. So,
yeah.
I think it's an amazing album. I think it's amazing that they pulled it off without a bass player. It's maybe a little bit overproduced because it sounds so good. And once you get used to that, early, visceral, edgy Mahavishnu, it's difficult to get into the Emerald a little bit. But I think it's such a rewarding album. It's like, for me, it's been like number 1. It's been number 3. It's been number 5. For like 20 years, I've been trying to understand whether I like this one better than, eventually I'm too old now to change my. No,
you're absolutely right. And the thing is, why do I like it? Is it because of my history with it? Or is it because of what it is as a piece of art?
It's always a combination, right?
It comes down to the the feelings that you have interfering with the work itself. It's and now we're getting to philosophy, which is a completely different thing. So I'm sorry to be talking too much.
Well, when I was very young and I was trying, you know, back then to try and work this stuff out, I wasn't around at the time. It was 10 years later. It was the 1980s. All this stuff had been deleted. You couldn't go to a shop and buy it. You know, I was going to libraries and getting books, and I had this Rolling Stones album guide book. The MAHAVISHNU Orchestra was in there, and they had it all had ratings. And In a Magic Flame had 4 stars. Birds of Fire, I think 3 stars. Between Nothingness, 3 stars. Apocalypse, 2 stars. And then Visions of the Emerald Beyond had this special thing for being truly wretched. And they made out it was like MAHAVISHNU Orchestra going all disco-y and all this type of thing. And that was when I first read about it. Now I didn't hear this album first. I mean, it was Birds of Fire was the first one I heard, and it blew me away. And then my dad took me up to a sort of a second-hand record shop in Birmingham up the road. I think it was I don't think it was a second-hand record shop, but they got imports in there. Steve would probably remember it. It was like in New Street. It was the big one.
Oh, Reddington's.
Reddington's, yeah. So I can remember going into Reddington's, you know, and they had a MAHAVISHNU Orchestra section. I used to be shaking with excitement, you know, and I'd go up with my dad, and he goes, "You can have 2 albums." And so I went up and I went through the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra album. I'm back to buy my second MAHAVISHNU Orchestra album. And like Steve said, I saw that one. I went, "It looks like Birds of Fire. It's got the Birds of Fire on." So I bought that, took it home, and it more than any other album, when I put it on, I was looking at the speakers in disbelief. Really, just, I mean, Birds of Fire was incredible, but you know, the string section and then these Indian sounds and the drum sounds and that big Narada fill at the beginning, you know. And I was mad on Birds of Fire. I was mad on Dance of May. You know, that heaviness you're talking about. But when Lila's dance kicked in, it's good, it's so unbelievable. And what's the track at the end of side 1 that starts with that arpeggio? Is it Faith?
Faith.
Yeah, Faith. That's the darkest they ever did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without a bass. I think the palette's wider. I'm a big funk fan, so it's funkier than the MAHAVISHNU. I mean,
then later on,
they were Sister Auntie is pretty funky, and you know, and Miles Beyond's funky, but you know, Cosmic Strut, and you know, that's incredible. It's an amazing album. The vocals, it sounded to me like a bunch of religious nuts chanting, which I thought was really cool.
I thought so
like
too.
They're all blissed out, and it's all like,
"Let me fulfill."
So I thought that was incredible. I love all that. So amazing that this is at number 2. You know, this is far more objective than my original one, because the people have been voted on it, and I just thought it would be low down. So I think there was a time when this album was looked down upon, and now I think it's slowly getting reevaluated, and I think it's being put in. You know, I think it's been put in with the 3 classic ones.
Visions of the Emerald Beyond. Were you all in the room at the same time?
Oh yes, that's Jimi Hendrix studio.
Yes,
Electric Ladyland Studios. I'm in the same place where Mitch Mitchell sat. I'm in the same place where Buddy Miles sat. I'm in that little corner there where the drums go. And Ken Scott is so incredible, because you know, he would teach us, mic the drums a certain kind of way to get those sounds you hear, or he would teach us to put a sheet over the bass drum for bump, 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 bump. How to get that beautiful sound like Ringo would get. I put a towel on a bass on a tom tom, just whatever it would be. Ken Scott was really incredible to work with at that time.
Yeah,
because I really wanted the drums to sing, and he knew all about that. And MAHAVISHNU was also very beautiful to bring us along.
I'm trying so hard not to ask drummy questions, because I know I can go down that road. But your toms on those albums, I've been in studios playing Visions of the Emerald Beyond, saying, get the toms like this, you know, because they seem to just run into each other. It's an incredible sound, you know, absolutely incredible.
Wonderful engineers, and those were wonderful drums. Those are Gretsch drums, that were painted on the inside, double enamel. It's kind of a gray paint, double sprayed. And the guys who put it together at Frank's Drum Shop, I told them I was coming into the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and Billy was playing vibes, those clear, loud vibes drums. So I said, I need a drum set, and I want them to be white, but make them loud. And they said, okay, we're going to double spray paint them on the inside, double coat them, and it was a trick. It made them really like what you hear on the record.
Yeah.
Just bing, 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 like that. And the snare drum, they made customized for me as well with a kind of what's called cat gut on the bottom. They were straight on the bottom, like 5 straight strands. I've never seen anything like it, but that became the snare drum.
So of course, at number 1, I don't know what I'm looking for on my list. At number 1, we have Birds of Fire. First one I heard, all the elements are there, incredibly recorded again by Ken Scott. It's just I don't know how I can even talk about this album. This is the album that changed my life. It really was.
The first one I listened to too. My sister is 4 years older than me, and she was dating, some guy. And he used to bring tapes, like little cassette tapes. And every time I would steal, a tape. So at one Friday evening, he forgot a tape on my sister's cassette player. There was one side, Love Sculpture, 1969, Dave Edmunds. And on the other side, it was Birds of Fire. And, it was a life-changing moment. I was 15.
Not a patch on Dave Edmunds, though, is it really? I mean,
I like Dave Edmunds. I like Love Sculpture, but this was like, he thought I would like the Love Sculpture because I was very much into the 60s stuff and all that blues stuff. And when I flipped the cassette, I heard that and was like, what's that? What's that? From the first song to the last, it's just complete bliss. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's a little bit better. It's better produced than the first one. It's not as produced as Visions.
Yeah, but nothing is
perfect.
Nothing is.
Yeah. For me, it's the perfect combination of darkness and perfection. It's just great. Just great. Open Country Joy. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Birds of Fire, it's almost like definitive Mahavishnu. Hang on, my wife shouted to me, Danny, I'm in a meeting, I'll be finishing in a minute. Okay, my dinner's ready. I'll leave it to, I'm going to have to go cold for Birds of Fire. I'm carrying on. I'd started. And I'll finish. So Miles Beyond, funky, and then when the guitar solo kicks in, and the Cobham it's just incredible. That little it's just full of stuff.
Yeah,
Celestial Terrestrial Commuters is still just it's in 1916. When I was 15 years old, I didn't know it was in 1916, and I had to work that out. And in working that out, that's how I learned to play the drums. I had to learn so much just to be able to understand what the hell they were doing, like music theory and all that, Thousand Island Park. Is that what it's called? That's a Rush song, isn't it? What's it called?
Which one?
It is called Thousand Island Park.
Thousand Island Park.
I thought I'd made a mistake then. I mean, Lotus on Ice Streams is absolutely beautiful, but this is something else, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's something else. And Jan Hammer's piano playing is incredible.
Right.
You've got that Sapphire Bullets of Pure Love, and then what's the one? Is it Resolution?
Yeah, that's the end. That's the last one.
That's the last track.
One keeps building up. Yeah, incredible. And you turn it over, and you get one word.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being completely blown away by this album, and then when I heard one word and they started to do that circular jewel, Oh,
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
unbelievable. Sanctuary, that Moog solo, that unbelievable. Open Country Joy, country and western. You know, it's a little bit
Yeah.
country and
And
western.
then all of a sudden,
Yeah,
It-
then they just
and
kick in. Yeah,
fusion. Amazing.
and then they
Amazing.
finish with Hope. Down, you know that. Yeah, I mean, there's it's just is incredible.
Yeah.
Charted in America, charted here. You know, top 20 album, sold millions of copies. God knows how. It's a massive achievement. Massive achievement.
And I think before that, when you listen to style, you know, Indian music and Indian styles, I mean, I was always, you know, you were listening to George Harrison, like Beatles, and we were, you know, thinking about that kind of a circular motion music. And then this comes, and it's like, you know, this is real, real
what
stuff.
McLaughlin did was put it all together.
Yeah.
He incorporated it in a way that was impossible. He did it.
It wasn't the
so incredible.
Yeah, and it wasn't the hippie thing anymore. It wasn't like the 1960s Indian style, which was you know, chanting and hippie stuff. This was like taking it to a new level, much more, you know, violent and very dark, and it was just there was nothing like it. I mean, yeah,
what they did at the time was they joined college professors with the hippies. If you want to think of it that way, they joined intellectualism with freak out type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
What he did, I think I'm the only one in this group who's been there, who lived it. I was only 14, 15 at the time, but I saw it. And that's exactly what happened. Now, I was not, at that time, not much into Zappa. But man, when Mahavishnu Orchestra came, wow, it was a head explosion. And they joined, like King Crimson, they joined everything together. All the music that you loved became one. And it was an amazing, and to me, as a kid, that was music. I didn't realize it would go away. And it did later on. And that was a tremendous, when that went away. But that's another story, and I'm sorry.
As we get to the end of this hour and a half, you know, ranking video, I think that the whole point here is we're all together because of this band. Because if I hadn't have done that ranking video and got my YouTube up and going, and then you know, tapped into a certain person out there, sort of middle-aged, sort of male, you know, changed for life by the Mahavishnu Orchestra, but you know, I've collected them all to me. We wouldn't be here, and it's because this band isn't just a band you like. It has an effect on you. Would you all agree that this band has an effect on you? And it's really hard to explain to people who haven't gone through that with music. For me, it was
it's like a music beyond music.
Everything changed when I heard this band, 1984.
Yeah. For me, it was like 1989. I think I was 15, and it's music that's beyond music, very much like King Crimson. And I think those two bands, you know, the things that really make them unique is that they're always changing. They were never what we think they were at the time when they played what they played. A day later, they would have played it differently, and they are this different at every moment. They never played the same track twice. Amazing. This is what we like. This is what I like, and this is what you know. This is my like top takeaway for this band. Unique.
Yeah, I've always I can remember I watched a documentary on Jimi Hendrix, and I think Jimmy's all over the Mahavishnu Orchestra. They're the only band that went beyond Jimi Hendrix, but he's all over it. And he turned up to a gig and he got told that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. So rather than play his set, they went out and improvised laments. And when I heard that, that was the band I wanted to be in. I wanted to be in a band that could turn up and go, right, we're not doing the set, we're just going to play. Now, I got close to that when I played with Robert Plant, because Robert you'd be in front of 20,000 people. And this is the most bizarre thing. He wasn't playing in front of 20,000 people. Jamming, doing White Rabbit, and then going into Bitches Brew and just jamming and having, in that, it was incredible. And, but the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra, I think they were huge. They were not playing jazz clubs. They were huge. They were playing, tens of thousands of people, and people were going and having an experience. And I've met them, it's like, oh yeah, I dropped acid and went to see the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra in 1972, and it blew me away. They played for 3.5 hours, the loudest band I've ever heard in my life. This is a landmark. It's a landmark in humanity. You got the pyramids. when we're all dead and gone in the future, all that's going to be left is the Hoover Dam, the pyramids, and the distant reverberation of the MAHAVISHNU Orchestra dying away.
Yeah.
Oh no, Andy. First of all, you stole my line. When we're all dead and gone.
Joseph, before we go, right? What room are you sitting in?
Yeah, what is this amazing
musical things?
Is that a Dan Electro? I think he froze.
He's not frozen. He's pretending to freeze.
He's doing your trick.
Yeah, I used to do that when
Yes,
in COVID, when you used to have big business meetings, and they go, so Andy, have you got all the figures for so and so? Yeah, I've got them here. If I just go.
Let's all freeze,
Shall we all freeze, and then I'll try and get the little finger. So I'll get the button ready. We're going to finish off with some. Not yet. Act like you're normal. And we're all going to freeze. This won't. So viewers at home, it hasn't frozen. It's just us acting, and then it will finish. Thanks for doing this. It was brilliant. We're going to have to do some more of these. Very good. Very good. Right. So I'll get my finger on the stop. Right, after 4, everybody freeze. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I stop it? Have I stopped it?
No.
I still have more to say.
Is it still going?
Yeah.
I pressed the stop.
Boom.